Hi, here's a response to my own thread, my first record thread. What skills have you developed over the years in terms of judging the condition of a used record on the spot, and what's your success rate of making a good evaluation of the record as opposed to what you hear when you get home to actually check it out on your turntable? Well, over the decades I think I've become pretty good. Not perfect, I'm never perfect. Scratches are easy to see, but what's harder is groove wear, and I hate groove wear way more than scratches. Groove wear is you hear distortion that goes with the music, and it gets worse the closer you get to the center of the record. That's caused by bad record players, especially from the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, with no anti-skating, a heavy tone arm, cheap needle, cheap record players that kept skipping, and people used to put stuff on the arm so it wouldn't skip. That ruined records. And the groove tended to get to white or gray, and it gets whiter the closer you get to the label. So that's how I know that it's been played too much. Sometimes I might take a chance if the record is rare and it's not too expensive. Other times I pass just because it looks too the wear of the groove is just too bad. So usually I tend to have a good diagnosis. What's harder to see is what I call digs. Digs is when when the needle is right into the arm, there's no slack, and if you press on the arm while the record is playing, it will dig right into the groove and cause a sound, sometimes even making the record skip. That's hard to fix. It's doable, but it's hard, and I don't always see them because sometimes they're very short. But they're rare. I don't see them too often. You can feel them with your fingers, but you can't start feeling all the records in a yard sale. That's crazy. But yeah, my success rate is not bad. I'm curious to know if you had a good idea of how to evaluate records. Do deletion holes in album covers bother you? Usually not, because when I was a teenager I wanted to buy more records. Records were becoming expensive, so I used to look at discontinued records, deleted records at Discus, Miracle Mart, Bunny Mart, stores like that, and I got quickly used to seeing holes in the corners of the records. What I don't like is when they're not reasonable. Like some might remember my Odd Couple record a few weeks ago. A huge chunk was gone from the corner. That's ridiculous, just too much. Like a little hole or a little incision will be enough. But I've seen it on 45s where they would punch a hole in the label. That's really ugly. And I've seen worse. I've seen a tiny hole right on the edge of the 45, and I've also seen holes right here at the in the space here, and sometimes it caused a crack in the rest of the record. That's ridiculous, and you don't always see it if you don't check the records one by one. It will be hidden by the record label, the record sleeve I mean. So that happened a few times, but usually I don't mind too much. It is a shame when it's a really rare record, and especially when the cover is beautiful. Sometimes the hole is a little bit big for nothing. That's too bad, but sometimes they're discreet. 45s, are you I think I went to yeah, 45s, are you pro small holes or pro large holes? Well, in North America 45s have large holes, and I like them because it's easy and quick to check records in the yard sale like this. Like just stack and just flip through them, shove them on your thumb. But it's a pain in the butt with the small ones, the small holes. I know they're small in England and Australia, I don't know what other countries. For a while in the 80s, Virgin Records in Canada used to release them with a small hole. I hated that. Or sometimes I found disc jockey 45s with a small hole on the Audiogram label, a French-Canadian label from Quebec. I hated that. I prefer the big holes for manipulation purposes. And any good record player has a spindle nearby. Any record collector needs to have a spindle. By the way, I hate finding 45s in yard sales with the little yellow individual spindles in place to stack them on a record changer. Well, they're easy to pop out, but I hate the metal ones that have been on the record for years and they're hard to remove without damaging the record. I've scratched one once by trying to remove it, and then the edge of the hole is all bumpy because the metal thing has been forcing the record for so long. I hate that. For 78s, those of you who might collect 78 RPM records, how many have you broken before learning to manipulate them when you started collecting them? Be honest. I've broken about half a dozen before I really got the hang of it. I even broke one once that was on the edge of a table. Let's say that's the edge of the table right here, and I just casually took the record with one hand like this, except that only a piece followed my fingers. It went clop. I went, what? So I started always using both hands when lifting a 78. You never know how it's going to break. Some brands are more fragile than others. In your country, which label made the best vinyl and who made the worst? Well, here in Canada, I think the best quality vinyl was CBS or Columbia in the 70s. Great quality vinyl, I loved it. And the worst was a French-Canadian label with an English name, an Anglophone name, Trans World Records. They recycled vinyl, and their vinyl was full of lumps and bumps. Horrible. And even the label had a weird texture. I hated that. But I have to I just remembered to mention that collectors in the United States were stuck with, oh man, what's the name? You have these awful polystyrene 45s. I hate those. Oh my god, I hate those. I have only a few in my collection. I hate them to death. God, they're awful. You play them a few times and the groove is ruined. Yuck. Thank goodness we didn't have those in Canada. Yuck. Hate polystyrene records. Yuck. Okay. Number 6. Do you or can you read grooves? I've learned to read grooves as a kid when I stared at the record player for hours. And I think I've explained that in the questionnaire. I'm trying to remember. But I use it to evaluate records that I'm thinking of buying that I don't know, but I know the artist, so I don't know the songs, and I tend to prefer songs that are peppy and have a beat rather than boring, slow, moody songs. So I spin I developed this talent also. I spin records on my thumb like this, very easy, and that allows me to do two things. It allows me to read the groove, and when the song has a beat, it's impossible to show on camera. I'm sorry. But there's little patterns. Little patterns, like the groove is like dancing or moving. You can follow the beat with your eye. And when the song is boring, I think there's one here, but you won't be able to see it. Yeah, if there is no beat and it's just like someone singing a serious song, you can see here the groove is a bit wider at the second quarter and the fourth quarter. So there's two choruses, and and you can tell this is a boring song. But when you see little like patterns of movement in the groove, you know there's a beat. So I tend to evaluate how fun the record might sound just by reading the groove like that. So I wonder how many of you guys do that. I do that with 45s. It's a bit harder, but I tend to, when I can't make up my mind, either because the record is rare, but it's a bit expensive, like 50 cents to me is a lot for 45. I tend to make my decision like that by reading the groove. That was reading groove. Number 7. Tell us about the worst decisions you've ever made while shopping for records. Either leaving behind a record that you regret not buying, or a bad purchase you regret making. Well, unless you pay a lot of money for your records, bad purchases are not too bad. Better safe than sorry. Except that I made a stupid purchase once. I don't know, I got carried away one year on eBay, and 10cc, which is one of my favorite bands, I got carried away. I decided that year that I was going to find all the albums on CD, but some of 10cc's CDs were not released in North America, so they're harder to find. And I went on a bidding war for a specific CD, paid over $60. I received it. There was a big what I call a Discman scratch. A Discman scratch is let's take the CD here. It's when you play a CD on a boombox or a Discman with a popping lid, and the record, you press stop, you open the lid, the record is not done spinning, and the idiot user presses to stop it. It rubs the disc on right onto the head and makes a big round scratch, and sometimes it damages the record completely. Well, there was one of those scratches on that $60 CD. I was so angry. So yeah, I have to be careful about that. But it's worse to leave a record behind, especially if it's not expensive. And the worst I've ever done was to leave behind a 45 by France Gall. Quite rare record. For those who know France Gall, it's on the LC label, and it's Shakespeare et pire encore, and the other side is Les Éléphants. I remembered having it at home, but I thought it was in good shape. So I saw this pristine copy and I left it there. It was 50 cents. Man. And then the collector following me through the yard sale, he had arrived just like a minute after me. He picked it up and he almost like, why did you put it back? I said, oh, I don't care, I have it already. But when I got home, I got suspicious and I took it out and I saw it was all scratchy. I never saw it again. It's pretty rare. The master tapes of that 45 are long gone because the record label had money problems. They got foreclosed. Anyway, and it's never been released on CD either. Oh well, it happens. Show us one of your favorite records for children. Favorite records for children. I forgot the Esther. Well, I couldn't dig out one of my rarest ones because I can't reach them. I wanted to show How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Boris Karloff, but I remember showing that in one of my very first videos anyway. I picked this one. A double album on Quality Records. And yeah, Sesame Street was a big part of my childhood. I'm French Canadian, and I've learned English a lot by watching Sesame Street. And in the good years, in the years of Mr. Hooper, when you had all these cool cartoons between the segments, inspired by El Submarine, often very psychedelic cartoons. And I'm very thankful that I grew up with Electric Company and Sesame Street. And I'm a big fan of Carol Spinney, who played Oscar and Big Bird. So yeah, thank you for watching.